behind a great game, where we unpack the code, craft, creativity, and operations behind great games.
In the fast-moving world of iGaming, delivering across multiple brands, multiple markets, multiple jurisdictions is like, running a live tournament. The rule keeps changing while the game goes on. So welcome to Agility at Play, evolving delivery models in iGaming. I am Mukesh Kholiya, a delivery manager and iGaming domain expert at Nagarro, and I am joined by Matthew Kroker, a software developer turned seasoned agile coach and consultant. Matthew has worked across industries, helping teams define structures, streamline processes, and embrace agility in complex environment. Matt, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, Mukesh, thanks for the introduction, and I really look forward to this conversation.
Today, we are unpacking one of the biggest puzzle, at least for me, in this iGaming delivery. Like, how do you stay agile when every brand, every market, and every regulator plays by different rules? Let's start the discussion with a real scenario, Matt. So, let's say it's Friday and your team just closed a critical sprint for an upcoming iGaming release in Brazil. So now the release is scheduled, the marketing campaigns are live, and then an email pops in from a regulator, a new clause, a new requirement, a new delay that could cost millions if you don't adapt fast. So how do you design a delivery teams to handle this scenario? What I just told, like multi brands and multi jurisdiction nature of the iGaming platforms, because it's not just about building features, but also adapting them in 20 different ways for 20 different rule book.
So, of course, like every good consultant, I would answer it depends, right? So it depends a lot on what you would like to achieve, what your talent pool is as well, right? And even the depth of your talent is in your organization. Typically, what I look for is that we design teams in a way that they can facilitate the delivery of value, right? So you don't want to create structures and hierarchies that get in the way when you want to try to deliver things out in the market, right? So I've done a mix of different teams in the past. Some the typical cross-functional team where you have mixed talents within the same team that can collaborate and deliver. But in some cases, I've also seen, and it made sense, that you would have or you would need specialized teams that are working on very specific aspects of the system. So it depends on that aspect.
Yeah, fully agree. So yes, a cross-functional team with a couple of colleagues who are, more focused on the jurisdiction overlay, just to take care of those regulatory requirements, would be the right mix here.
Yeah, I mean, you want to. So sometimes I try to interpret cross functionality not only in terms of skills but also in terms of awareness of what is needed to be done, right? So in this case, you might not have a lawyer in your team because that might not be feasible, right? To have someone who knows the gaming law of a given jurisdiction, but someone who is aware of the changes, or someone who is who keeps themselves savvy to what's happening out in the market. Probably that's a good addition to have in the team.
Yeah, even a PO Matt, I would say, having a good deep knowledge of the market, because he is ultimately owning the product, so he knows what are the upcoming things, and he should then that embedding that knowledge seems to be crucial, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. So now let's move to what I think is the biggest tension in our iGaming world. So like Agile emphasizes on flexibility, right? But compliance, it requires rigidity. So how do you reconcile those two forces in delivery?
That's a very good question. I would look at compliance as So if you are in the business of building online casinos, you are in the business of compliance, right? So you can't innovate, or it's very risky to innovate much faster than you can actually validate against the given regulations, right? So what you want to do is to have the right infrastructure in place that keeps your decisions in check with the regulations that you want to comply with, right? I've read a lot about what the type of agile that is done, for example, at Tesla, right? So Tesla is also working in a very regulated market. It's safety requirements and all this, right? And still they work with 12, so to speak, 12-hour sprints, right, where they innovate with every sprint. But the crux of it is, how are we capable to actually validate what we're doing and keep within the regulations that we want to operate, right? So that's the thing. Um, uh, yeah. So I would look at compliance in that case as a way that validates what we are doing before we
Yeah.
ship it.
So also I would say like compliance is like a non-negotiating user stories or acceptance
Definitely.
criteria, right?
Definitely. And these are your acceptance criteria, right? And you're in, so you can always negotiate the implementation, the value, but at the end of the day, you need to comply with your
Exactly.
acceptance criteria, right? So that is what you need to achieve.
Thank you. So on that note, so let's talk about speed also, because like how do you balance speed to market with certification and testing requirements? Again, like in this gaming industry, every operator, every provider, they want to be first, right?
Yes,
But uh, a missed compliance step can be very disaster.
exactly. Exactly. I think you need to keep, when I try to explain um, accelerating product value to my clients, right? Or to the people I work with. One of the things which I emphasize on is the way that you organize yourself as an organization, right? So you don't want to become too bureaucratic that bureaucracy gets in the way, but we are working in a highly regulated market, so you need to be aware of the regulations as well. And secondly, you don't want to embrace practices that are too heavy for you to take a decision, right? So if we are spending a lot of time in planning, in discussing, in analysis, right, rather than actually building our ideas and trying to validate them against the regulations, then that is wasted time. That is all time eating away from you actually penetrating the market early.
And also, like with this AI increasing playing a role
Yeah,
to balance the speed with certification, I think we should think towards the shift left on the compliance and testing. Like rather than waiting till the end, we should try to
definitely.
integrate the automation, the compliance checks, these security scan right in the delivery pipeline. Like with every commit, it should be like the checks should run, right?
Definitely. You don't want to be in a position where QA at the end of the funnel are testing huge projects that at the end of the day might fail on even simple terms and conditions, statements in your website. So you want to actually have everyone involved in the participating actively to actually achieve this certification.
Totally agree. Okay. So, moving on, how do you ensure effective collaboration between delivery team and non-tech stakeholders like compliance, marketing, operations, who often have very different priorities and timelines?
Definitely, it's always a challenge, right? But I think I always like to look at it as we are trying to achieve the same thing, right? So you have a set of skills. I am bringing with me a set of skills as well, and together we're going to achieve this value, right? So I would always encourage to actually have spaces where we can actually meet and collaborate. It could be on a on a given cadence, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, depends the project and the environment that you are operating in. And yeah, transparency should be the rule of the game, right? So if we are a software development team, for example, and if we are developing regulatory sensitive software, whatever, right? If at the end of our sprint we are going to do a demo and not invite people who are actually have a skin in the
Not
game
the
of on
yes,
compliance, for example, right? I think
yes,
that's
yes,
a wasted time of a demo, right?
exactly,
But even more so, I would take it even, even a step forward than that. We shouldn't wait for the demo to actually share what we are doing, what our concerns are, and so on and so forth. So definitely transparency across the board.
exactly. So involving those non-tech stakeholders in all the agile ceremonies to get the early feedback. So you also need to translate, those technical progress into the business values and the
Definitely.
compliant implications. Like we use Kanban or any Springboard to show how the flow of work and highlight those dependencies. Yeah. So it's more about building a single cohesive team with diverse expertise, not working on silos, right?
Yeah. So sometimes I know, right, that for example, if the expectation is that people from compliance, I don't know, or from anti-money laundering, they are to attend a daily meeting every day. I think that is too high of an expectation and probably not even needed, right? So
Yes.
you want to find the right opportunities where they can actually participate, not only as observers, because sometimes the observer role tends out to be disengaged. So we want
Yes.
people to be there to actually find value in what they are investing in terms of time, right?
Great. Okay. So we know the AI hype is going on. So how do you think is the evolution of AI automation and live ops changing team structure and delivery expectation in iGaming?
Yeah, I think it challenges everyone to the core, right? So I think it is challenging the non-techies just as much as the techies. So some developers, and they are right to say that maybe the AI cannot totally replace a software developer,
Mhm.
but we cannot deny that they are becoming stronger and stronger by the day, right? So what we want is we want to I like to promote AI tools as an extension to the team, right?
Yes.
So an example which I've discussed with one of my clients was okay, so we are spending 2 hours of refinement, and at the end of a refinement session we have a bunch of user stories on Jira or whatever the application that you are using, right?
Mhm.
I'm not saying that's not useful, but what if we can actually use the same amount of time to build a prototype, validate it with stakeholders, and then come back and build real stories with real feedback, right? So I think, and with vibe coding, this is very possible, right? This can happen as we're
Right.
talking. So I think AI can be the right gateway for us to short circuit the thinking process to the validation process.
Right. Also, I would say the delivery expectations are now shifting from uh, deliver features to deliver continuously optimized
Yes.
experiences, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, we can't fool ourselves, right? So faster doesn't always mean better, right? So we always need people to actually own the code that is being written anyway, and yeah. But at the same time, let's ride the wave, right? So let's go with it.
Okay. So Matt, like looking out 3 to 5 years from now, what do you predict will be the biggest shift in how iGaming team operates, and how do we as consultants proactively prepare for that?
That's a very good question. Yeah, so I think countries are becoming more aware of their territories and in creating a jurisdiction, a gaming jurisdiction of their territories, right? So I
Mhm.
think we've seen it in the past 6 to 10 years, and probably in the future it will continue building up, right? So the on that front, probably countries will become more protective, maybe, or probably more protective of their population and their territories.
Mhm.
And at the same time, it might be an opportunity for iGaming casinos to actually innovate in the way that iGaming is currently happening, and find other ways that can still provide entertainment to the public within the new regulations introduced.
Right, right. So, like moving towards a hyper personalization driven by predictive AI, right?
That is definitely in the world probably of marketing. The casinos probably, yes. That would be a path that will develop.
Yeah. So, but yes, as a consultants, our role, like it will be to guide companies through this paradox, right? How to leverage powerful AI for speed and personalization, while we build the robust, adaptable, the frameworks, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely my space of expertise is more on how I can help organizations get organized in a way that they can
Mm.
always react to the innovation out there, right? But definitely, and I think there's an opportunity as well when we talk about hyper personalization. It's not only about whether I see one color or not the other, but also the way I am consuming the information. So some people maybe prefer to consume visual information, others prefer to listen to information, for example, right? So probably hyper personalization can be multidimensional in that aspect.
Yeah, even like we have the data of the player, so we know what is the we know the demographic information of the player. We know what kind of games he loves to play. So so we have to provide
Definitely,
that personalization interface to them, right?
definitely.
On the same line, like how do we ensure the team is ready to innovate constantly?
That's a very good question. So I think we need to look at the team at the introduction of these practices. In a way, we need to not push but emerge these practices working
Mhm.
with the team that we are working with, right? So one thing which I typically steer away from my consultancy is that I try to apply a given framework blindly on every context, the same in every organization. So every team has their own story, but
Mhm.
I would always find opportunities to challenge in a way, right? So be it during the same practices. Sometimes we also introduce activities like hackathons, for example, right?
Mm.
Where we have where we need to create something in 24 hours. It is an informal way how to break some mental barriers that we cannot do this in such short time, you know. But it's a muscle to be built. So it's a nice journey to take on with any team, really.
Yes. So on the same line, I would also say that like even in Nagarro also we also have this flow. This is a yearly tech event that we host for 2 days, where like we encourage all the participants, all the team members to come join in and present something. It's a combination of like show and tell. Hackathons are going on. We are picking up any AI topic, and then we are doing those quick 30 to 50 minutes, a practical problem statement. We are discussing those problem statement, and we are there itself. We are coming up with the solutions and
Yeah,
sharing it with others. So
yeah.
this is another way to be ready for the upcoming changes, innovations, and constantly challenging ourselves, right?
Yes, yes.
Right.
And yeah, hackathons can be a loads of fun, right? So it's a very informal space. People are free to experiment. It's a perfect occasion.
Yes. So, thank you, Matt, for sharing such valuable insights. Before we wrap up, I think let's quickly revisit the three key takeaways from today's episode. I would say, like first, like we considered like treating compliance requirements as a non-negotiable user stories from day one. We talked about balancing agility with compliance is not a contradiction. It's a partnership basically between both of them. Leading teams and all the leading teams are integrating, regulators early in their processes so that flexibility and control move hand in hand. And third, the future of iGaming delivery will be defined by this collaboration and AI powered automation, helping teams move faster while maintaining the precision across multiple jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in. Until next time, keep innovating and stay agile. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh.
Thanks, Matt.